This is Rocky Balboa, and you're listening to another new episode of Movie Thoughts. Here's your host, Dominic Tortomella. That is right. Welcome back to another fun-filled episode of Movie Thoughts. And as Rocky Balboa himself has just said, I am your host, Dominic Tortomella. And we're going to do a Rocky-centric episode. That's right. I shelled out all the big bucks to get Sylvester Stallone to record that. And here we are. We're in it. Hope everybody's doing good. We do recent movies on here. A lot of newer movies. Obviously, we do. But sometimes we take it back. We take it back old school. And I want to start taking it back old school a little bit more. So we're going to take it back. Now, we're not going to go as far back as Rocky 1 or Rocky 2 or Rocky 3 or even Rocky 4. We're going to go back to 1990 and hop in the time machine and go back to Rocky 5, the most, divisive, however you say it, film in the Rocky franchise. I believe, at least. Now, Rocky 5. Before we can talk about Rocky 5, we have to talk about the other Rockies. We have to talk about my opinion and my thoughts on the other Rockies. I love Rocky. I mean, who doesn't love fucking Rocky? I grew up with Rocky. I was raised on this film. I started watching it, or them rather, at a young age. And I love these fucking movies. I mean, who doesn't enjoy Sylvester Stallone playing the punchy, lovable Rocky Balboa, right? They become a little bit repetitive here and there, but all in all, they're good films. So before we talk about the one we're going to talk about, the main one we're going to focus on, Rocky 5, let's talk about the other ones a little bit. Now, first of all, spoilers all over this fucking podcast. If you've never seen any of the Rockies, I do not want to rob you of that joy of watching Rocky. 1 through 6, 1 through Balboa, and the Creed spin-offs. Creed 1 and 2 currently. Creed 3 is coming, but we'll get to that a little bit later. So I don't want to rob you of that joy. So if you're not looking to have these movies spoiled, please leave and come back at a later date after you've caught up on the Rocky series. Now, Rocky 1, a classic, right? I'm not going to do a ranking of these movies, but I guess in a way I'm going to kind of give my thoughts on each one. Rocky 1, the movie that got Sylvester Stallone on the scene. The classic, right? If there's a takeaway from this franchise, it's Rocky 1. I mean, you can't, as far as like quality movie, pound for pound, screenplay written by Sylvester Stallone, starring Sylvester Stallone, in one of his early roles. That is not a porn film. You could go look into that a little bit later if you'd like. Sylvester Stallone did do a softcore porn film at one point in his career early on, pre-Rocky. And the funny thing about that movie was it was called Party at Kitty and Studs or some shit like that. And then after the success of Rocky, whoever owned the rights to it re-released it as The Italian Stallion, which... Listen, when opportunity comes a knocking, you strike. Why wouldn't you do that? It's genius, right? We're not going to be talking about Party, Kitty, and Studs. Let's talk about Rocky. Rocky's a great film, holds up, 1976, I believe. And yeah, it's the one that got Sylvester Stallone on the scene, right? This is the one that made him a movie star. And... like I said, if you're going to show somebody Rocky who's never seen Rocky, you got to at least show them the first movie, right? If they're not ready to take in the 6 movies and the 2 spin-offs, you got to at least show them the first one because it's a great film. I believe it, but did it win Best Picture? I believe it won Best Picture of 1976. But yeah, it was nominated for some stuff. John G. Avildsen directs the first Rocky, and he also directed Karate Kid, which is very similar film. He later on directs Karate Kid, which does a good job. And he directs the movie we're going to be talking about in a little bit, Rocky 5. We'll get back to that in a minute. Then there's Rocky 2, right? Rocky 2 is a great sequel. I think it's probably, as far as like pound for pound quality movie, I think it is the best sequel. as far as, because you get into a weird territory with the Rocky movies. You get into like the more unrealistic ones, which we'll get to in a sec. But as far as like a good sequel that lives up to the original, I think is a good story. You know, it's the continuing story of Rocky and his life and Adrian and stuff like that, and Paulie and Mickey. But it's also the rematch, right? Super Fight 2, Rocky versus Apollo. And in the first one, Rocky doesn't win. It's by decision. He doesn't fucking win. So in this movie, like, it must have been a cool experience. I wasn't around, but it must have been a cool experience seeing that in the theater and watching that, like, as an event kind of thing. Seeing Rocky 2 first and seeing how this fight was going to go. I guess part of you had to believe that Rocky was going to win, and he does. He takes the title. And Rocky 2 is a very satisfying sequel. Rocky 2, I believe, is the first one that's directed by Stallone. Because that's the thing about these movies, like, Stallone directs a lot of them. And that's the first one that really does it. And honestly, here, Stallone shows that he's a very capable director, right? He writes a screenplay. He directs the film. He stars in it. He does the trifecta. And it works. I love Carl Weathers in this movie. I love fucking Rocky, obviously. I love the moments that we have in this movie. It just adds more to the mythology, right? Then we get Rocky 3. Rocky 3 is a movie. It's a fun movie. It came out in 1982. It is pure 80s, right? Also directed by Stallone again. And this is where they start to go into the just what this franchise became for a little bit. Kind of, I don't want to say the movie's that unrealistic, but it starts to become something a little more, especially in the 80s, it starts to delve into the, it dips its foot into the unrealistic stuff, right? Now, Rocky 3 is funny because it's basically Rocky 1 and 2 slapped together. You basically take the first film of Rocky losing, the second film of Rocky winning, and you slap them together. And then you got the great plot of Apollo Creed training Rocky and teaching him, kind of being like a black fighter, learning some stuff. He's in a swimming pool at one point. There is a lot of cutoffs in this movie. There is a lot of short shirts, abs showing, sweaty abs, sweaty legs, massive sweaty legs, Carl Weathers' massive sweaty legs. A lot of, a lot of fun stuff going on in here that is pure 80s, right? Them running on the beach. Who could forget the classic running on the beach, right? With the short shorts and the short cutoff shirts. There's something a little gay about it, not gonna lie. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but there's something a little homosexual about it, but we all love it, right? So hey, it is what it is. Two guys bonding on a beach. We all love it. Running, Eye of the Tiger, fucking great fucking song. And I heard something like that wasn't even Survivor got hired to do a song for the movie, and I think the first one that they did wasn't even Eye of the Tiger. This was like the backup song was Eye of the Tiger, and that's the one that Stallone was like, hey, we gotta use it, it's great, sounds great. But fantastic fucking soundtrack, fun movie. As far as like compared to the other two that had been released at this point, it's a drop in quality as far as what it brings to the table. Is it anything new? Is anything with any depth? Probably not. You get Mickey dying. You get the emotional Sylvester Stallone. Mick, there's so much more to do, Mick. The incoherent rambling that I just love, that gets me every day, and him covered in tears, and Mickey just stops breathing, and he's got the robe on. No! We all know the scream, right? Classic Stallone, Rocky 3. And then we go to Rocky 4. With that, we go to Russia, okay? And with that, we go with Sylvester Stallone, seemingly, stopping the war on screen, right? Like a lot of messages in this movie. Just the Cold War was upon us. We were in it. We were in the thick of it, and Sylvester Stallone made this movie. And it had a message, right? It had a message. It was a little bit on the nose, We all know how it ends. If I could change, you could change, everybody could change. And I love Rocky 4. I'm going to start with that. I love fucking Rocky 4. Fun movie. Just makes you want to beat up somebody. I mean, that's what a lot of these movies do. And even Rocky 5 does that. But, like, just gives you the, you know, that, like, there's, the, you know what it is? There's the fucking motive, right? There's the catalyst. Apollo Creed gets beat to death in the ring. I'm sorry. and there's the catalyst, right? He avenging his friend. It's great. You get into it, and then when he's pounding on fucking Drago in that final act, you're loving it. This is what you wanted the whole movie, right? So we skip ahead, and now we're talking about Rocky 5. The other two, the other three, rather. Rocky 6 we'll talk about as I talk about Rocky 5. But Rocky 5, so Rocky 4 is action-packed, but it's also like a music video. When you watch this movie and you really like, I want you to sit there the next time you watch Rocky 4 and really clock in or write down or drink every time there's a montage, because you're going to be fucked up. You're going to be fucked up, okay? You're going to be like, wow, how many montages? There's montages in this movie that are back to back. Like, they end one montage at one point and another one begins right after. There's like a line of dialogue, and then another one starts. It's literally a music video. And that's not a bad thing. It's the 80s. You got some great fucking songs on there. Fucking No Easy Way Out. You got Hearts on Fire. Great training montage in Russia. Fucking delivers, And that's the thing about these movies, 80s movies. Hour and a half movie. You went to the theater with this film. You had a fucking grand old time, right? You were cheering. You were throwing popcorn. You were fucking throwing the slushy down your throat. You had a good time. And then in the end, Rocky beats the shit out of the big Russian. Everybody wins. You walk out of there thinking, hey, we're going to beat these Russians, right? Well, maybe we could be friends with them too, right? The movie does its job. Now, Rocky 5. Rocky 5 gets a lot of shit, okay? It's kind of like the black sheep of the Rocky series. Sylvester Stallone has came out in the past and bashed it himself. But I could watch this movie and just take it all in objectively and, like, enjoy it, right? Because at the end of the day, this movie was trying something different, and you have to accept that this movie was trying something different. You have to put yourself in the time and in Sylvester Stallone's shoes while you're watching this movie, because you're coming off those 4 films, especially after 4, they've become a little stale, right? It's the same kind of recipe. I mean, especially after 2, where you're doing 3, like I said, it's the 2 movies combined, and then you're doing 4, which at that point, Rocky's going to win. You're watching that movie after fucking Carl Weathers, Apollo Creed, gets beat to death in the ring. You know that Rocky's going to win, right? The stakes are there, obviously, but you're rooting for it, but you know it's going to happen. And the movie wasn't really, it's been called a superhero film, because it really is. I mean, Sylvester Stallone's in like the best shape of his life, and they're just fucking, it's no different than fucking Iron Man and Captain America fighting in Civil War. Except Captain America, or Iron Man rather, is fucking played by fucking Dolph Lundgren, and he's gigantic, and he's not wearing armor. But it's the realism in Rocky 4. Now, Sylvester Stallone did do a newer cut recently, and I did watch it. It was a little bit more serious. It was a little bit, set back to reality, but it's still the theatrical version, I think, is the preferred version here. But Rocky 5 was coming from a place where, all right, we got to do something different, right? And this movie brings back the original director of Rocky. Sylvester Stallone obviously wrote the script and stars. You got Talia Shire, you got Burt Young, you got the introduction of Sage Stallone, Sylvester Stallone's real-life son, playing his son in this movie. And right from there, and it's not to knock Sage, but right from there, the casting of that, the movie gets a little wonky right from the beginning, right? Because this movie starts and it's supposed to take place directly after Rocky 4. And his son wasn't in a lot of Rocky 4, but the actor portraying his son, the previous actor, but he's obviously younger And when Sylvester Stallone gets off that plane, and it's supposed to be the same fucking week, he gets off and fucking we're greeted to the new son, played by Sage Stallone, who is noticeably older. So if you're watching these, you marathon these, you got to kind of dismiss that. But that, in a nutshell, is a lot of the stuff that's wrong with this movie. But I think if you take all that with a grain of salt and you watch this movie, it's not the worst movie in the world. Now, first of all, it tries to do something different, right? Right off the bat, Rocky is retired. He fucking retires in every fucking one of these movies. Count it. He literally retires in every one of the movies. You can watch Rocky 1, I think he says something about retirement. Then Rocky 2, he's retired. Rocky 3, he's going to retire. Rocky 4 might be the only one that he's like not saying that he's retired. And then he's like, but he's kind of retired. And then he fucking comes out. But anyway, he retires in every one of these fucking movies. But this movie actually delivers on that promise, and he is retired in this movie, right? He's got some kind of brain damage. There's certain liberties that Sylvester Stallone takes in this fucking movie to make, Rocky make these choices. Like, Rocky has to retire because he's got a brain condition. Then he loses all his money, and that's what brings him back to Philadelphia, where he started. I could appreciate what he was going for, right? He's bringing it down around full circle, and I get it. It's the execution that didn't really work completely, I think, in this movie that makes it, I don't want to say hated, but people just say it sucks. People don't give it a chance, and then it didn't help that Sylvester Stallone said those same sentiments. But revisiting this movie, I do enjoy it. I think it's a movie that it benefits from me having seen it when I was a kid. I grew up with this because by the time I was watching Rocky in fucking 94 or wherever the hell I was, all the Rockies were out at that point. So it was 1 to 5, and I had the box set and I had them taped on VHS and stuff like that. So I would always watch them in that way, 1 through 5. So 5 never felt like it didn't belong to me, because it was always there. I probably seen 5, chronologically. I probably seen it before I seen some of the other ones. And so I accepted it. And, I understand where the, people come from. I mean, this movie's he trains Tommy Gunn in this movie, played by real life boxer at the time, Tommy Morrison. There's a couple people dead from this movie. Let's put it out there. First of all, Sylvester Stallone's son passed away years later. I want to say it was in the 2000s, maybe 2010, 2007s. I don't know the fuck, but he passed away from, I think, drug-related overdose, from what I remember reading. Tragic, obviously sad. He's not a bad actor. He's a pretty good actor. He does a good job. He's likable, I think. It doesn't hurt that he's got his father's fucking genes, so he looks like his father and stuff like that. And then the other one we lost is Tommy Morrison, who plays Tommy Gunn. Now, my God, Tommy Morrison, just the fucking, the spiral of horror that this guy's life had. I mean, if you want to really get the full on nightmare, I would recommend watching the Tommy Morrison 30 for 30. Could probably be found on maybe like ESPN's app or something like that, or streaming somewhere. You want to have fucking nightmares, watch that. You want to be an emotional wreck, watch that. Me and my brother watched a few years ago. My God, because this guy, he was a real deal boxer, right? He was a good boxer. If you watch his boxing matches, he was a good boxer. And long story short, in his, it was post Rocky 5. He was very, famous. He was at his peak of fame, and he contracted HIV, all right, AIDS. And I believe first he was HIV positive. I don't even remember like I said, watch the documentary if you really want to sweat. Just make sure you have a towel by you and you could dab your head every so often, because this is the nightmare. Going from being in movies with Sylvester Stallone and being a fucking boxer to, from fighting George Foreman, the legend, which is a good match if you watch that. I mean, George Foreman was a little past his prime, but a good match all in all. To, contracting this disease, and then his life took like just a weird fucking path. In a nutshell, I'm going to give you the nutshell version, which I can only imagine if somebody's listening to this podcast for the first time. That's what I always think. If you ever hear me laughing on my podcast, like genuine laughter, it's always because I think about if somebody's listening for the first time and they turned on this podcast and they were like, oh, this one's about Rocky 5 or Rocky. All right, let's just do it. And then I go on like I go down a Tommy Morrison AIDS hole, like a rabbit hole. And then they're like, what am I listening to? Why is he talking about Tommy Gunn? Why did he only talk about Rocky for 5 minutes? What is happening? Who is he? Yeah, this is what the podcast is. Okay, so this is what it is. It's movie thoughts. Nowhere in this podcast did I say I was going to fully, conventional reviews. That's what I do on this podcast, right? It's thoughts. It's the brain. Is what's going on in my brain and how Tommy Morrison's horror story lives in my brain rent-free. Okay? So I'm going to give you the breakdown of what this guy basically... So after Rocky 5, sometime after that, he contracted AIDS. Okay? Now, he was on a show. I don't know if it was Oprah. He was on like a talk show at one point because I remember seeing the clips while I was going down one of these fucking... I was probably, shaking and drinking and watching YouTube clips, but... He was on one of these daytime shows, and he was like, oh, I'm going to try to, spread the message of getting HIV and this and that. And he went from that to, like, he spiraled out of control. I mean, he was denying at one point he had AIDS. He was fighting, like, illegally in other countries or trying to get his boxing license back. At one point, he ended up in jail. There's some interviews with him, post-jail, and he's like, he's missing teeth and whatnot. Real nightmarish tale. I mean, as I said, the documentary covers everything, and it will keep you up. But, like, this would make a great movie if done right. I mean, like... I don't know, you get somebody of a Christian Bale caliber to play him, to lose the weight, to gain the weight, because then, at one point he's really skinny and he's bald and he's denying that he has AIDS and stuff like that. Ultimately, he did pass away, sadly, but the guy's, I don't know, now I'm just blindsided. Now I'm blindsided by my own, remembering of this story, and I don't even know where I was. But yeah, he's in Rocky 5. Let's get back to that. He's in Rocky 5. And I will say this, as far as acting, he plays a pretty damn good character. I think that he does well enough, and I will say, because here's the thing that I do have some problems with. Obviously, I could bash or nitpick on Rocky movies all day, but like, let's say Rocky Balboa, right? Rocky 6, we'll call it. So Rocky 6 is the one that came out after this, and it's the one that came out years later, and Sylvester Stallone wanted to basically, make amends and make a final proper Rocky movie, so he makes Rocky Balboa. Now, I do like Rocky Balboa. It's basically him getting back in the ring, and, they waive all that brain damage bullshit. They don't really go into it. But he is in Philadelphia. They do kind of allude to that Rocky 5 took place. Adrian's dead in that one. They kind of do that. So he's kind of like got that missing part that he's trying to fulfill, and Adrian's not there to yell at him and stuff like that. But one of my problems with Rocky 6, as good as a movie it is, and it did get back to the basics of just making... It's definitely a more grounded film, and it goes back to those Rocky 1 roots. My problem with it was I think it's Antonio Tarver who plays... Let me look this up before I botch his name. But he plays Mason the Line Dixon, right? Yeah, okay. So Rocky Balboa, 2006. Wow, that was a fucking long time ago. So Antonio Tarver, who is a real boxer as well, plays Mason the Lion Dixon, Sylvester Stallone's opponent. Now, the thing that, like, one of the things that took me out of that movie a little bit was, like, every Rocky, villain, if you want to call him villain or opponent, some of them aren't really necessarily villains, but they all have a lot of character, right? And they're all, like, kind of, you want to have somebody who's a little bit cartoonish in a way, right? Even Apollo Creed, taking it back to the first one, Apollo Creed is such a personality. It's obviously based off Muhammad Ali, but he's such a personality. Carl Weathers plays him in such a good way that even though you hate them, you kind of like them. You like watching them chew the scenery. And it's no different when you get to Clubber Lang, played by Mr. T in Rocky 3. He's fucking amazing. Clubber Lang, if we take away anything from Rocky 3, it's that Mr. T is fucking amazing in that movie, right? Just the performance, the fucking, hey woman, how don't you bring yourself over here, make you let her meet a real man, or whatever the fuck he says to Adrian at that point at the statue induction ceremony, whatever the fuck it's called. He's great, right? He's charismatic. He's got it all. There's a reason that Sylvester Stallone picked this guy. And same with Dolph Lundgren, right? He's a little bit more quiet in that movie, but he's a presence, just without even saying much. So when you get over to Rocky 6, Antonio Tarver, he doesn't really bring anything to the table. He's very generic. He's very forgettable. And I think that's one of the things that, to me, hurts that movie. I'm not going to get into the argument of what's a better movie, Rocky 6, Rocky 5. A lot of people can obviously say Rocky 6. But, like, I will say that Tommy Morrison as Tommy Gunn is a much more memorable character. And they're both coming from the same background. So, like, as much as I could bash it and say, oh, well, or maybe in defense, you could say, oh, Antonio Tarver was a boxer, he wasn't an actor. Same with Tommy fucking Morrison. And Tommy Morrison, I think, brought his A game in that movie. Now, I'm not going to say he's fucking winning Oscars or anything like that, but the character he's supposed to play, he plays and he makes him memorable, and he's a fucking asshole and you hate him. With kind of like Antonio Tarver, you kind of just felt like indifferent. He's kind of like, not really bringing it. He's saying like bad one-liners, he's got bad delivery in the lines and stuff like that. Tommy Gunn fits in with the rogues gallery of Rocky opponents. I think he fits in well. And that's one thing that I think Rocky 5 has over Rocky 6. Now, another thing it has is fucking George Washington Duke, played by Richard Grant. Because his character is based on Don King, obviously. He's so fucking memorable, though. He's just memorable. He's not in a lot of the movie. He obviously pops up, but he's just, you love to hate him. He's popping up, he's yelling things, he's trying to get Rocky to fucking, and then at the end, shoot, touch me and I'll shoot. Come on, boy. You gotta dog him. You gotta do whatever it is you gotta do to get that man in the ring. Come on. Fucking fantastic, right? You just want to punch him in his fucking throat, and that's the point. Jesus Christ. I'm on IMDb, and I just stumbled across Tommy Morrison's picture, and that just, if you go look at Tommy Morrison's picture on IMDb, sums up everything, okay? He's got a red bandana on. It was pretty late in his life. Wow, I'm just fucking... Anyway. Richard Grant, George Washington Duke, good character, actor, memorable. Obviously, Mickey is not in this movie. Burgess Meredith does pop up in like a flashback scene, which works, and comes back later with the whole, get up, you son of a bitch, because Mickey loves you. It works. But yeah, this movie, listen, you got to kind of check your mind at the door with this movie, because, first of all, the timing, they don't tell you how much time passes in this movie. You're watching it. Now, remember, this movie starts when Rocky 4 ends. So that's Christmas time. Then Sylvester Stallone's in the shower. He's like, I can't stop my hands from shaking, Adrian. He calls Adrian Mick. I just want to go home, Mick. I just want to go home. And then we go along. We see he's retired. He ends up in Philadelphia. Paulie somehow lost all his money. Yet again, check your mind at the door. Because, whatever, I don't know. Paulie had somebody sign a piece of paper that made them lose all their money. You just kind of scratch your head and say, if you accept it, you move past it. There's definitely plot holes. If you move past it, it's not the worst movie in the world. They end up back in Philadelphia. But then at one point, it's Christmas again towards the end of the movie. So at least a year passes. They don't really fill you in on that. There's a lot of lost time in there that like just could go over people's heads. So just yet again, if you accept these things and you move past it, I think you can enjoy the movie more. But yeah, listen, a lot of people bash this movie because Rocky's not fighting, right? He's training the whole movie, but it's a different film. How many times do you see the same guy box in a ring? Obviously, Rocky 6 brought a little something different to the table because he was older, he was beat up, he had lost his wife, and he's at a point where he's got nothing else, so he wants to get back into the ring. But when Rocky 5 came out, what was the story going to be? He gets back in the ring again, and he fights somebody again. So he trains a boxer, that boxer turns on him, and listen, if you're fucking itching for a fight, you do get the Tommy Gunn fights here and there, which are, there's a lot of super cuts in them, and they're fairly enjoyable. But then you get the fucking Tommy Gunn versus Rocky street fight, which it's short. It doesn't last long. It's not as epic and blockbustery as something like Drago versus Stallone. But, like, that's a good fight. And that's a fight that gets you pumped. I mean, when he fucking punches Paulie out, and Paulie's bleeding out of his mouth, and he's like, "You should have left the bum out where you found him." And he's like, "You knock him down, why don't you try knocking me down?" If that doesn't fucking make your blood fucking boil, and you don't want to go punch fucking Tommy Gunn in his fucking mulleted fucking head, then you're not fucking human, okay? And when he knocks him down, and then he's like, he hears fucking Mickey in his head say, "Get up, you son of a bitch." Come on. Are you even alive if you don't get, you don't want to go street fight after you watch that movie? You're either not alive or you're not Italian. Because I want to go fight somebody after I see that. But yeah, it's a short match, a short fight, but it gets the juices flowing, okay? And when he knocks him out, and then he gets the comeuppance, or rather George Washington Duke gets his comeuppance when he gets a fucking knuckle sandwich to the face and flies on top of a car after saying, "Go on, boy. Go on, chump. Touch me now, Sue. Zoom me for." It's fun, okay? Now, I am basically, this podcast is in defense of Rocky 5. It's also, warning you about Tommy Morrison, right? Advising you, because nobody wants that in their life. But yeah, rewatch Rocky 5. If you've never seen Rocky 5 and you've put off Rocky 5 for a long time because you've heard bad things, rewatch it. Now, one thing I don't like right now is, so I got like an old DVD box set when it was just 5 of them. And then I got a newer Blu-ray set that's 6 of them, Rocky 1 through 6. And then obviously Creed 1, Creed 2 came out. But like now they're coming out with 4Ks of the films, which I was excited for until I saw that's only the first 4 films. It's 1 through 4. So I've heard mixed things about this. I've heard that one of the things I've heard, which I hope it is the case, but that Sylvester Stallone is making newer cuts to Rocky 5 and 6 as he just did with 4. So hopefully that's why. But like, this happens too often. I mean, if you ever, not that I watch the movies on fucking TV and stuff, but on cable, but like a lot of the time when they do a Rocky marathon, it'll just be like Rocky 1 to 4. Back in the day, they used to play 5 more. And it seems like they kind of just steer away from it and they don't really care about it. Like I said, it's kind of the black sheep. 6 is kind of like its own thing because it's kind of like its own movie. You know, it is a sequel, but it kind of stands alone. So a lot of time when there is a marathon, it doesn't play with it either. But what's the deal? Just release all fucking 6 of them in a box set. Because I'm not going to buy these until there's a nice 6 box set. I don't think. What's the point? I'm going to upgrade 4 of them. Why are we stopping here? I want 5 upgraded too. You know, I think that mentality on the film needs to change. Hopefully, if he is doing another cut, maybe people will give it another shot. Maybe it'll be a superior cut. I don't know. I remember reading that originally, and there is like a raw, you can watch it online. I definitely seen clips of it. There's like a raw cut of Rocky 5 where like Rocky dies at the end. Now I don't remember if the pieces of it I seen actually show that, but it did show scenes like there's the character of Little Marie from the first one, who later popped up as a main character, a supporting character in 6. She actually popped up originally in 5 and was exactly what he warned her about being, like a hoe that hanged out in front of the Atomic Hoagie shop. So it's kind of like, oh yeah, it did happen. But that was all in like a very, very like poor footage. I mean, it's literally like just camera fucking shit footage that never got officially released. But it's cool to see if you want to check it out. So I don't know if he's going to do that cut where Rocky dies maybe and release that. I mean, I don't think we need that, but it's possible he might just, put it out there as a supplemental version, something a little different. And I'm curious to see what a different cut of Rocky 6 would be. There's definitely, like I said, I do like that movie overall, but there's definitely things about it I don't love. One of the things, even though it's more based in reality, he does like the boxing match through like, an HBO kind of thing with the same commentators and stuff, makes it more realistic. I prefer the more cinematic boxing match, right? I mean, like, I don't watch Rocky films to say like, ooh, the boxing's got to be realistic. I want, Drago to beat Apollo to death in the ring. Not that I want that; it's horrifying. But I want that, movie centric boxing match, that exaggerated boxing. So maybe there's a cut with a different version of that. I don't know. Who knows? Now, Creed 3 is coming. The Creed films, I think, are good. I think they're, Creed 1 is good. Creed 2, a little bit like all over the place. Obviously, they tried to do a lot. They tried to, reintroduce Drago, give him a little more sympathy, his son, and stuff like that. I thought it was good enough. I thought it worked well. But I kind of left Creed 2. I think me and my brother, when we went to go see it, with my father and stuff, we had the same sentiments. I'm like, all right, if that's the last of Rocky, I'm good, There's got to be a line you draw, right? Because as much as I love Rocky, I don't need to see 25 fucking Rocky movies. It just doesn't, it's fine. 6 was fine. Then you got Creed, which was cool. Creed 2, but I was kind of like, alright. So now Creed 3, there's a lot of shit if you're into it and you've been reading up on it. Sylvester Stallone's got like a big problem with the producer of Rocky and how he's not, selling him back the rights or whatever the fuck. I'm not going to take any sides in the subject. I don't know what happened with what. I know that Sylvester Stallone was in a position early in his career where he sold these rights over when he had nothing. So he did sell the rights over, from what my understanding is. Now, I don't know how the producer's handling that, but he seems like he's been talking a lot of shit online and how he's not a part of Creed 3 and this and that. I figured by the ending of Creed 2 that like Sylvester Stallone was going to be kind of like weaned off and it was going to focus more on Michael B. Jordan's character, the next one. But at the same time, kind of like, all right, well, if I don't like that he's not like supporting it, if Sylvester Stallone's not supporting this thing, is it really, should it really be part of that mythology? I don't know. I mean, I'll probably end up seeing it. I don't have like super high expectations for it. I know that Michael B. Jordan's directing it. It's his directorial debut. But I also don't like that like they kind of kick Stallone to the curb. I mean, he's got to be getting paid somehow because they are his characters and stuff like that. But who knows? I don't know. Then there was talks at one point that he was going to do another Rocky. I don't need that in my life. I do not need a Rocky 7. As much as I love Rocky, I think we're good where we are. I think we've seen the highs and lows of this franchise. I think we've been pretty much everywhere. But that's it. That's my thoughts on Rocky 5. I think it deserves another shot, right? I think we need to stop excluding it from the franchise. Listen. There's one thing in that fucking... If there's one thing you take away in Rocky 5, because at one point that was going to be the final movie, right? Is the ending credits montage with the Elton John song Measure of the Man, which is fucking fantastic. That's a song nobody talks about. Probably written for the movie, it seems lyrically, like it was specifically written for this movie, but there's a whole like montage of photos from each of the previous movies playing during the credits with that song. It's great. It's great. Actually, I wish they would have tagged that on the bottom of, on the back end of Rocky Balboa, honestly. Maybe just brought that back. 'Cause it's just such a good little ending to the series. And every time I watch that movie, I got to watch the credits all the way to the very end. But yeah, there's Rocky 6. So it's not really the end. Rocky 6. If I could give some thoughts on Rocky 6 again. It was fun seeing that character back on the big screen. I will say that. That was my first Rocky on the big screen. Because, I was in 1990 when Rocky 5 came out even. I was like 2 years old. So that was my first big screen Rocky. But, yeah, I don't know. I'll say I think I like Rocky 5 better than Rocky 6. I know. Somebody's going to fucking kill me for that. But I just think it's more of a Rocky movie. It feels more Rocky than Rocky 6. Although I do like it. I'm not going to bash it. I don't know. I'll take more Rambos, I guess. No more Rockies. I think I'll take one more Rambo. What was it? Rambo Last Blood, which that's a fine way to end it. But if you want to do one where he just like blows himself up or something at the end, that's cool with me. Because that last one was fun. Like it was different, but it was fun. He's fucking killed everybody in the cartel and stuff like that. And then there's an extended version where he's in like a cowboy hat more. Why not? But yeah, that's the podcast this week. Signing off. Check out the other episodes if you haven't listened. It's your first time listening. Welcome. Just recently did Knock at the Cabin. Talked about little Groundhog's Day and fun stuff like that. What about infinity pools? Infinity pools. I sound like an old guy talking about a store. Let's go to Targets. Let's go to Best Buys. Infinity pool. There's only one infinity pool in that movie. Speaking of nightmares. But yeah, that's what I do on this podcast. I talk about stuff. How about Megan? Babylon. Babylon's a movie. I will say, I'll bring up other podcasts that are not related. Babylon, the movie. It's getting some, now that it's on streaming and stuff like that, some people are fucking coming around to that movie. And that's good to see, because it's a pretty good movie. I think it got a little bashed too much. But yeah, go check out that episode. Check out my Instagram, my TikTok, my whatever the fuck, Twitter, Dom Solo Reels. Dom Solo Reels, where I post some stupid stuff from time to time when I'm on there. I don't know, I try to wean off there sometimes too. It's like, it's hell on those social networks. I can't speak. But yeah, Rocky 5. Thanks for listening. If you like what you hear, give me a rating on iTunes or Spotify and subscribe. Have a good night.